The capture. The stars were silent, but the battlefield was not. Burning ships floated in space like broken toys. Bodies drifted with no life, and smoke covered the light of nearby planets. The war between humans and the Jirel, a powerful alien race, had reached another level. She moved through the wreckage with calm steps. Tall, armored, and with glowing eyes, she was known only as the Harbinger. Her real name was lost long ago. Her hands had ended hundreds of lives. She never asked questions. She never showed mercy. Her presence was fear. On the human ship, she walked past the dead. Her soldiers followed behind her in silence. "Any survivors?" she asked in a cold, low voice. One of the soldiers nodded. "Just one, a young male. He's locked in the lower cell." She said nothing and continued walking. In the cell, the human sat quietly on the floor. He had blood on his face, and one arm was hurt, but when she entered, he didn't look scared. He looked curious. She stepped closer and studied him. "Name?" she demanded. He looked at her for a moment, then smiled slightly. "You first," he replied. The soldiers behind her moved forward, ready to punish him, but she raised her hand. "To stop them." "No," she said, "leave us." They obeyed and left the room. The door closed behind them with a heavy sound. She stared at the human for a few seconds. "You should be afraid," she said. "Why?" he asked. "You're not going to kill me." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're special?" He tilted his head. "No, but I think you're not as heartless as they say." She stepped closer until she was just a few feet away. "I've burned cities. I've ended whole squads alone," she said. "Don't play games with me." But he only looked at her, calm and serious. Then softly he said, "You're beautiful." The words hit her like a weapon, not of pain but of confusion. She froze. No one had ever said that to her. In her world there were no compliments, no soft words, only rank, strength, and orders. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "You heard me," he said. "You're beautiful, not just your face, everything, even the way you carry yourself, like you've survived a lot." She turned away for a moment, like she needed to breathe, even though her species didn't need air like humans. "You're trying to trick me," she said. He shook his head. "No, I just said what I saw." She didn't reply. For the first time in many years, she felt something. Not fear, not anger, something else. It made her feel weak, but not in a bad way. "You don't know me," she said. "I don't need to," he replied. "I can see it in your eyes. You're tired of this war, tired of being a weapon." She stepped closer again, and this time her voice was softer. "You speak like a fool." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I'm the first person who's ever seen you as more than just a soldier." Silence filled the room. She turned and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she spoke without looking back. "Do not harm the prisoner," she said to the guards. "I will handle him personally." The door closed. Outside, the soldiers exchanged confused glances. She never spared prisoners. She never spoke with them for more than a minute. Something had changed. Inside the dark hallway, she walked alone. In her mind, the human's words echoed again and again. "You're beautiful." She clenched her fists. She was a warrior, a destroyer. She was not supposed to feel. But now, a crack had formed, and once a crack appears, it always grows. Far away, deep in space, something else watched her closely. The Jirel High Command. They saw everything, and they did not like change. The name. The stars outside the alien warship were still, but inside her mind, storms had begun to rise. She couldn't sleep. Not that she needed much sleep. Her kind had been engineered for war. But tonight something was different. Something small and strange was growing inside her like a spark flickering in darkness. "You're beautiful." That single human sentence had not left her mind since the interrogation. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not her commanders, not her squad, not even her creators. She had always been a weapon, sharp, cold, deadly. Never a person. Never something beautiful. She stood in front of the mirror in her private chamber. Her armor was off, revealing scars, dozens of them, each one a reminder of battles won. Her reflection stared back like a stranger. For the first time, she wondered what it would be like to be something else. Someone else. The door beeped. "Enter," she said, her voice strong again. A young soldier stepped in. Nervous. Sweating. "Commander, High Command requests a report about the human." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "They believe he may have strategic information," the soldier replied, avoiding her gaze. She could smell the fear in him. "I'll handle the report myself," she said coldly. "Now leave." The soldier bowed and ran. She knew the truth. High Command was watching her, testing her. One wrong move, and they would erase her like any other failed tool. But she didn't care. Not anymore. The next day, she returned to the cell. The human sat in the same spot. He looked tired, but not afraid. When he saw her, he smiled again. "Back to finish the job?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just stood there watching him. Then he asked, "Do you have a name?" "No," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "Not even a code, a title?" She crossed her arms. "I am the Harbinger, that is enough." He shook his head. "That's not a name. That's something people call you. A name is something that's yours." She didn't know why, but that sentence made her pause. He continued, "You should have a name. Something that belongs only to you." She looked at him, confused and annoyed. "Why do you care?" "Because if I'm going to die here," he said softly, "I want to know who you really are, not just what the galaxy fears." She stared at him in silence. Then he smiled again. "Can I call you something? Just between us?" She raised an eyebrow. "What?" He thought for a second, then said, "Starfire." She laughed, a short, harsh sound, more like a breath than laughter. But it was real. "That's ridiculous," she said. "It fits," he said with a grin. "You shine, but you burn too." She turned away, hiding the strange warmth that spread through her chest. "You are strange," she muttered. "I'm human," he replied. "We say things like that." She looked over her shoulder. "You say foolish things." "Maybe," he said, "but sometimes foolish things are the most honest." Silence filled the room again. She stepped closer. "I could kill you," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "But you won't." "Why not?" "Because I see it in your eyes," he said. "You don't want to be what they made you." She froze. No one had ever spoken about her choice before. Everyone believed she was the weapon. But this human, he spoke like she had a soul, like she had a say in who she could be. She turned and walked to the door. Before leaving, she said, "I will return tomorrow. Eat your food. You need strength." He smiled again. "See you tomorrow, Starfire." She didn't correct him this time. Later that night, deep in the command room of the warship, hidden cameras replayed her entire conversation. Alien officers watched with cold, glowing eyes. "She is losing control," one said. "She's forming an emotional link with the prisoner," another said. "It is dangerous. She must be corrected," a third said. "Or removed." They sent a message to High Command. The decision came back in seconds. Order: eliminate the human. Observe the Harbinger's reaction. If she fails to follow protocol, terminate her too. The next morning, she walked toward the cell with a strange feeling in her chest. Was it excitement? No, she didn't get excited, but still, something inside her felt different. When she reached the cell, 2 guards stood outside. "What are you doing here?" she asked. One of them stepped forward. "We are here to remove the prisoner." "New orders." She felt the air change. Her fingers curled into fists. "Who gave this order?" she asked, voice colder than ice. "High Command," the guard replied. She stared at him. Then she said, "Stand down, I'll handle it." "We were told to bring him immediately." She stepped forward. I said, Stand down. There was silence. Then the guards moved away, confused and a little scared. She entered the cell. The human looked up. Is something wrong? Things are changing, she said. He stood slowly. You're not safe, are you? She didn't answer, but her eyes told him everything. In that moment, without speaking it, both knew the truth. They had crossed a line and now there was no going back. The spark outside, the warship, space drifted in silence, but inside her chest something had started to burn. It was small, fragile, but alive. A spark. She didn't understand it, not fully. The human had said things that made her question everything, her orders, her mission, her identity, even her purpose. She had always believed emotions were weakness, but now, she wasn't so sure. And High Command had noticed. In the observation tower of the flagship Betrayal, 3 Zerel officers stood before a holographic display of the Harbinger's profile. She hesitated, one said coldly. She defied a direct command, said another. Shall we proceed with the cleansing? No, said the third. We wait. If she continues to fall, she'll lead us to the deeper infection. The next day she returned to the cell. This time the guards didn't argue, but their eyes followed her with quiet suspicion. Inside the cell, the human sat cross-legged on the floor, humming something soft. A tune. What is that noise? She asked. He smiled. It's a song. From Earth. She tilted her head. It has no words. It doesn't need any, he replied. It's about peace. It's what we listen to when we're tired of fighting. She sat on the floor across from him. Close, but not too close. I don't understand, she said. Why? Would you sing during war? Because, he said. Singing reminds us there's still something worth fighting for. She was quiet, then asked, what else do humans do when they're not fighting? He looked at her, surprised. You really want to know? She nodded. Once, he began talking about rain, about the taste of real food, about laughing with friends, about falling in love under the stars, about mistakes, about stories. And she listened, really listened. For the first time in her life, she didn't notice how close she had leaned in. She didn't notice her armor's chest plate was loosened, or how her expression had softened. But someone else had. A tiny surveillance drone the size of a fly sat in the corner of the ceiling, recording, watching, sending every frame back to High Command. Later that night, the human was alone in the cell. The room was quiet, but he felt something shift. Then, without warning, the lights went red. Emergency mode. The door burst open. 2 unknown Zerel soldiers rushed in, weapons ready. Move. One barked. The prisoner is to be transferred. He stood. Transferred? By whose orders? High Command, the other said. He looked around. Where's Starfire? They grabbed him roughly, but just as they dragged him toward the door, she appeared. No armor this time. Just a black combat suit. Her eyes glowed like twin suns. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. In a blink, she crossed the room. Crack. Her fist shattered one soldier's helmet. Slash. Her blade ripped the rifle from the other's hands. The second soldier tried to raise an alert. Too slow. Thud. He hit the wall and didn't get back up. The human stared in shock. You killed your own? She looked at him. They were not mine. Then she walked to him fast and grabbed his wrist. No time. We have to leave. Leave? But how? They will not wait next time, she said. They will execute us both. He didn't argue. He followed. The hallway was dark and full of danger. Alarms started to echo through the ship. Sirens howled. Doors locked down. They were already too late. Security drones flew from the ceilings. Defense turrets came alive, and yet, she moved like lightning. Every motion was precise. Controlled. He watched her fight. and saw the rage inside her. But this time it wasn't rage for glory, it was for him. And that made it something new. Something powerful. She took a blast to the shoulder but didn't stop. He tried to help her, but she shook her head. "Save your strength," she said. "We'll need it to reach the hangar." The final door opened with a hiss. The hangar spread before them, massive, full of fighter ships in chaos. 3 elite guards blocked their way, Sorel champions. She stepped forward, raising her energy blade. "I'll hold them," she said. "You take that ship and start it." "I'm not leaving without you," he shouted. "I will follow," she said firmly. "Do it now." He hesitated and then obeyed. She fought like a storm, 3 against 1. She bled. She screamed. But she did not fall. And then, suddenly, the ship's engine roared to life behind her. She flipped backward, tossed a plasma grenade at the guards, and dove inside the ship just as the door closed. Boom! The explosion lit the sky behind them. In the cockpit, breathing hard, she collapsed into the co-pilot seat. "You're hurt," he said, trying to help. "I'm fine," she said, though her shoulder was leaking violet blood. He patched her wound as the stars stretched in front of them. Silence. Then he asked, "What happens now?" She looked at him, weak but proud. "Now," she said, "we run." "And after that?" She stared into the stars. For the first time, she smiled. "We find out who I really am." But far away, on a cold metal world, High Command watched the escape. "She has chosen the human," one voice said. "Then she is no longer one of us," another replied. "Send the fleet. Bring her back. Or erase her." Betrayal from within. The stolen ship floated silently in deep space. No stars, no signals, no voices, just silence. She stood by the control panel, one hand resting over the injury on her shoulder. The other held a glowing blade, just in case. Behind her, the human sat fixing a broken console. Sparks jumped as he twisted wires together. "You could rest," he said without looking at her. "I don't rest," she replied coldly. But her voice lacked its usual strength. He looked up. "You're bleeding again." She turned away. "It will stop." He stood and walked toward her. Slowly, carefully. He knew by now sudden movements made her tense. "You saved me," he said. "You didn't have to." She didn't answer. He added, "You fought your own kind. You gave up everything." Finally, she turned to face him. "I didn't give it up," she said. "They took it from me the moment they told me I wasn't allowed to feel." Her eyes burned, not with hate, but with something heavier. Pain. "I was made in a lab," she continued. "I was trained to kill when I was still a child. I was never given a name, never a choice." He listened quietly. "They taught me how to win," she said, "but never how to stop." A long pause. Then he stepped closer and held out a small object. It was a necklace, a tiny charm, shaped like Earth's moon, from his pocket. She looked at it, confused. "What is this?" "A reminder," he said, "that you're more than what they made you." She stared at it, and then, slowly, took it. Something had changed, but far away someone had noticed. On the moon of Rixar, a secret Sorel command base received an urgent transmission. "Target has escaped, accompanied by human prisoner, tracking in progress." "Orders?" The voice on the other end replied. "Without emotion, do not kill, not yet. We have a deeper plan." "What plan?" "She was not the only one we trained, not the only weapon we created." "You mean?" "Yes. Deploy the shadow." 2 days later, the stolen ship landed on a rogue station, an outlaw port hidden in the asteroid belt. It was full of noise, smoke, and criminals. No laws. No sides, just credits. They walked through the station side by side. She wore a hood now, her glowing eyes covered, her weapon hidden. But even in disguise, people moved out of her way. Something in her presence still screamed danger. They found A safe room in the lower levels, he asked. How long can we stay here? She replied, Not long. If I know the Zerel, they've already sent someone. He looked around. Then what's the plan? We get a new ship, new IDs, disappear. He paused. And after that, she didn't answer. Because even she didn't know. That night, while the humans slept, she stood alone on the balcony of the station's edge. Her hand touched the moon charm around her neck. She didn't know what she was now. Not a soldier. Not yet free. Somewhere in between. She heard a sound behind her. Light footsteps. Familiar pattern. Too familiar. She turned, fast. A dark figure stood in the shadows. Tall, armored, eyes glowing red. You've gone soft, the figure said in her language, her breath caught. Zira? The figure stepped into the light. It was her, the only other like her, her sister, not by blood but by design, trained together, raised together, and now, sent to kill her. I knew they'd send you, she said. Shira smiled, sharp and cold. Of course I volunteered. She drew her weapon. You betrayed everything we were built for, Zira said. For what? A human? I found a reason to live, the Harbinger replied. Didn't you ever want that? Zira stepped closer. They told us love was a lie. They were wrong. You're weak now. No, she said. I'm stronger than I've ever been. Without warning, Zira struck. Their blades clashed, lighting up the night sky. The fight was fast, brutal, beautiful. Two perfect killers, trained the same, moved the same. But one had something the other didn't. Reason to live. Inside the safe room, the human woke up to the sound of alarms. He ran outside and saw them fighting. He wanted to help, but he knew this was her battle, and she was losing. Shira was faster, harsher. I don't want to kill you, she shouted. You already died the moment you chose weakness, Zira screamed. Thence a flash of pain. Zira's blade stabbed her shoulder again. She fell to one knee. But then she looked up and saw him, the human, and that gave her strength. She dodged the next strike, grabbed Zira's arm, and whispered something only they would understand. I choose my own ending. Then, with a final move, she disarmed her sister and turned the blade. Shira fell, unconscious but alive. She stood breathing hard, blood dripping. The human ran to her. You okay? She nodded. We need to go. Others will come. He looked back at Zira. She was like you, she whispered. She was me before you. They boarded a new ship, engines humming. As they escaped the rogue station, she sat beside him and stared ahead. You're not just a prisoner anymore, she said. He looked at her. And you're not just a warrior anymore. They shared a quiet moment, but deep in space something darker stirred. The Zerel knew she wouldn't stop. So they prepared for the final plan, something far worse than soldiers. Something ancient. Escape. The stars stretched around them like silent witnesses. Their ship sped through dark space, far from the rogue station, far from the Zerel Empire. But not far enough. She sat in the pilot seat, face cold and focused. The wound on her arm was healing, but the wound inside her, the one caused by fighting Zira, had still burned. The human sat beside her, checking the nav system. We've jumped 4 times already, he said. They'll still find us, won't they? She nodded. They always do. A long pause followed. He asked, if we keep running, how does this end? She didn't answer, because she didn't know. A day later, they reached a quiet moon in a forgotten system. It had no name, no people, just ice, stone, and silence. She landed the ship inside a frozen cave and powered everything down. No signals, no lights, no movement, she said. It will be hard for them to find us here. He looked around. This place feels like a tomb, she replied. That's the point. They made camp in the cave. She patched her armor. He lit a small heat core. They shared a food pack, tasteless but warm. For a moment it felt like peace. But peace never lasted. That night she stood outside the ship, watching the icy sky. The moonlight reflected off the snow, painting her face in silver light. The human walked up behind her. "You okay?" he asked. She spoke without turning. She was the only one who ever knew me. Zira. He nodded slowly. She believed in the mission, in the Empire. She thought I betrayed her, but she didn't see. She paused. She didn't see what I saw in you. He was silent. Then he said softly, "What do you see in me?" She looked at him. Freedom. Far away, in the core of the Jarrell Empire, an ancient machine came alive. A vault opened in a black tower no one had entered in centuries. Inside it was something old, something made before even the Harbinger's generation. A living weapon. Codename, Vorax. It had no voice, no feelings. Only one purpose: hunt the broken, erase the weak, restore the perfect order. High Command whispered into the machine's mind. Find her. Bring back the traitor. Burn anything in your way. On the frozen moon, their peace shattered with a sound. Boom. A tremor shook the cave. She stood instantly, grabbing her weapon. Her eyes glowed with instinct. The human ran to the scanner. It's picking up something. Huge. Just entered orbit. She looked at the sky and froze. One ship. Black. Ancient. It hovered like a god above the moon. "That's not from the Empire," she whispered. He stared. "Then what is it?" She didn't blink. "It's worse." The ship fired. The entire cave exploded in fire and ice. She grabbed him and threw both of them into a side tunnel as the ship crashed through the moon's surface like it was paper. They ran, through tunnels. Ice cracking beneath their feet. Fire above. She led the way, injured again but unstoppable. Suddenly something dropped in front of them. Tall, silent. Silver armor. Red lines glowing across its body. It didn't speak. It just moved. Fast. She shoved the human aside and blocked the attack, barely. The thing moved like liquid metal, each strike stronger than the last. "It's adapting," she gasped between clashes. "It studies me every time I move." "Then stop fighting like them," the human yelled. "Fight like you." She paused, then changed. Instead of perfect, sharp attacks, she moved wild, unpredictable, human-like. She dodged, rolled, stabbed sideways, and then she won. But just as the machine shut down, it whispered something. One of many. "We are coming." She looked at the human. It was a scout. Back on the ship, barely escaping the collapsing moon, she sat silent again. The human looked over. "What was that thing?" She answered quietly. "The Empire made it before me. Before Zira. A project they abandoned. Or so we thought. No feelings. No names. Only control." He said, "If that was just one, what happens when more come?" She stared out the window. Her eyes dim but her voice steady. "Then we stop running." He frowned. "What does that mean?" She turned to him. "It means we stop hiding. We take the fight back to them." But High Command had already planned for that. Across the galaxy, sleeper agents, hidden Zarel operatives, began waking up. In human governments, in rebel fleets, in neutral systems. And one of them knew where the Harbinger would go next. Refuge on Earth. The ship pierced through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Fire surrounded the hull as it entered the blue planet. Wind screamed past the windows. The human held tight to the co-pilot handles, but the Harbinger, still silent, still focused, guided the ship down. She had never seen Earth before, and even through the chaos of landing, she noticed it. Color, green trees, blue oceans, white clouds. It was alive in a way no metal warship or blood-red battlefield ever was. Her first breath on Earth was deep. Not for oxygen. She didn't need it. But for something else. Something called peace. They landed in the forest. Far from cities. Far from eyes. The human led her through the woods to an old bunker. A safe house once used by rebels. Inside, it was quiet. Dusty. Forgotten. But safe. At least for now. She sat near the window that night, watching the stars through the trees. He made tea, human tea. The smell confused her. "What is this?" she asked. "Comfort," he said. She took a sip. It burned her tongue. She didn't flinch. "Why are your people so soft?" she asked. "All of this. It's fragile." He smiled. "Maybe, but it's the fragile things that make us fight harder to protect them." She looked at him, really looked. His eyes were tired but kind. His hands still carried old scar. From war, from loss, from trying too hard. And for the first time she wondered, had she been the strong one all along? Or him? The next day, they traveled to a nearby human village, just long enough to get supplies. She wore a cloak, her face hidden. But something strange happened. People smiled at them, not in fear, not in submission, just kindness. A child gave her a flower. She didn't know what to do, so she took it. She carried that flower all day. That night they sat near a fire. The human played music, a soft song from an old device. She asked, "What is that?" "It's a love song," he said. "Love," she repeated. "Another human weakness?" "No," he said. "Our greatest strength." She stared into the fire. The flames reflected in her eyes like galaxies burning. Then she whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're not their weapon," he said. "Then what am I?" "You're becoming." She looked at him, her eyes softer than ever before. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, the ground shook. Alarms screamed from the hidden console. She rushed to the scanner, multiple signals, fast, closing in. She turned to him. "They found us." In the sky, 5 Zerel ships broke through the clouds. Civilians screamed. Earth's early warning systems activated too late. The Harbinger grabbed her armor, her blade, and turned to him. "Stay here, protect the people." He grabbed her arm. "You'll die alone." She looked at him, dead serious. "I'd rather die free than live as their weapon again." She ran outside. The battle began in a storm of metal and fire. She fought in the sky, jumping between trees and drones, tearing through Zerel soldiers who dared step foot on Earth. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the soldiers dropped their weapon. They didn't fight. They raised their hands. She paused, confused. Then another dropped theirs, and another. And then she heard a voice, broadcasted through the helmet of a dying commander. "Your name is Sarai. You were one of us, but you became more." She froze. That name, Sarai, pierced something deep inside her. A memory, a voice from childhood, a secret they had buried. She was not just a weapon. She had once been a girl. Back at the safe house, the human listened to the chaos, explosions, screams. Then silence. He ran outside and saw her, standing in a circle of fire, her armor broken, her face bloody, but her eyes alive. Around her, Zerel soldiers knelt. Not dead, not defeated, just changed. She looked at him. "They didn't want war," she said. "They just didn't know anything else." He walked to her, slowly, and for the first time, he touched her face. She didn't stop him. "You have a name," he said. She nodded. "Sarai." He smiled. "That's beautiful." "I was made to destroy," she said, "but you chose to save." High above Earth, the black ship, Vorax, watched silently. It had not moved. It had not fired. It was waiting. And now, it understood. This was no longer about war. This was about a revolution. The last stand. The sky above Earth burned red, not from fire but from something older, colder, and hungrier than war. The Vorax fleet had arrived. Hundreds of dark, silent ships hovered in the atmosphere, perfect lines, no signals, no warnings. They did not threaten, they simply waited, as if the outcome was already decided. Inside Earth's military council chamber, panic spread. They've blocked all satellites. City shields are weakening. We need to evacuate the planet. But then a voice, calm and clear, cut through the chaos. No, we make our stand here. Sarai, once the harbinger, now reborn, stood before the generals. She wore no helmet, no cape, just scars, truth, and purpose. Those ships, she said, pointing at the sky screen, are not conquerors. They are cleaners. Cleaners? A general asked. She nodded. The Empire built them as fail-safes. If any part of their system becomes corrupted, like me, they don't fight it. They erase it. A commander stood. How do we stop them? Sarai looked around the room. You don't, we do. She stepped forward. I know their code, I know how they think, but I don't know how to win alone. She turned to the human beside her, her guide, her spark, her anchor. He nodded without a word. And in that silent exchange, Earth's hope was sealed. Within hours, Earth changed. Cities turned off lights to confuse enemy sensors. Fleets rose from oceans. Human rebels returned from exile. And for the first time in history, Sirel defectors stood beside humans, not above them. Sarai stood at the front of it all. Her blade was rebuilt, her armor recolored. Her eyes, now calm, no longer glowing, held the storm within. The last battle would not be for victory, it would be for choice. The Vorax made the first move. Thousands of drones dropped from the sky like rain. No screams, no roars, just silence and death. But Earth didn't fall. It fought back. Every fighter, every soldier, every rebel, even civilians with old rifles, pushed forward. Sarai led them, and the human was beside her every step, flying Earth's last stealth ship directly into enemy lines, destroying Vorax cores one by one. They were winning, barely, until the central ship moved. It was bigger than a city. It broke the clouds apart just by rising, and from its center, a voice finally spoke. Not loud, not sharp, but deep and final. You are errors. Emotion is poison. Choice is chaos. Order will be restored. Sarai stared at it. I've heard those lies all my life, she whispered, and I believed them. She turned to the human. He held her hand. You still can turn back, he said. She smiled, tired, proud, and stronger than ever. I'm already home. They flew toward the core ship. Every other battle faded behind them. Inside, metal halls stretched like veins, glowing red. Drones attacked one by one, all falling beneath Sarai's blade. She fought like she was born for this, not as a weapon, but as someone finally free. They reached the core chamber. At the center, Vorax Prime. Not a machine. Not a being, a presence. Its voice echoed in her mind. You are broken, Sarai. You were made for war, not for love. She stepped forward. No, I was made by you, but I became something you cannot control. The machine raised a spike, ready to strike. The human stood between them. Then you'll have to go through me first. Vorax paused, confused. You are irrelevant. You are human. But Sarai placed her hand on the human's shoulder and stepped forward. No, she said. He is everything. And then, she plunged her blade into the central power core. It began to collapse. Vorax screamed, not in pain, but in confusion, illogical, identity, fragmentation. The ship began to explode from the inside. Sarai turned to the human. We have to go, now. But the blast was too fast. He grabbed her and shielded her body. The world turned white, silence, then wind, then light. She woke in a field, green, peaceful, birds flew above her, and beside her, hand still holding hers. He was alive, bruised, burned, but smiling. "You're hard to kill," he whispered. "You too," she whispered back. Above them in the sky, the Vorax fleet was gone, destroyed, Earth was safe, and she was finally free. Weeks later, the people of Earth built a monument, not to victory, but to change. A statue of Sarai, not in armor, but standing tall, with open hands and peaceful eyes, and beside her, carved into stone, she was made to conquer, but chose to love. In honor of those who fight not to destroy but to become. The end.